The generic Gen Z experience is you wake up probably in a dark room, you reach for your phone and you just start scrolling or texting your friends and communicating. You don't leave your room, right? You don't go outside and take walks. It's bad.
For many young people, this is not an exception, it's the norm. Today I sit down with Adnan Akalili, a 20-year-old founder and CEO of Touchgrass Collective, a national student-led movement focused on tackling Gen Z's growing health challenges.
I would go to sleep late on my phone or on games. I would eat really unhealthy. All of these things caused my metabolic health to completely drain. Ultimately, it led me to have a panic attack and anxiety and all of these things.
Al-Khalili is pushing for a return to something simple, reconnecting with the real world, sunlight, movement, connection, nourishment, what he calls touch grass.
It is actually probably one of the most famous Gen Z phrases, which is touch grass, because there's only one phrase related to health. Why don't we use that to be the way we get people offline?
But he's not arguing we should abandon technology altogether. Instead, he's asking, what if we could redesign it?
With technology, where we're able to seed into technology healthy rituals and healthy habits.
This is American Thought Leaders, and I'm Yanya Kellick. Adnan Al-Khalili, such a pleasure to have you on American Thought Leaders.
Thank you for having me.
So a lot of people, I think, that are watching this show, including me, do not fully grasp because we didn't grow up in the virtual world. We grew up in a physical world that sort of transitioned
the normal world
over time into a somewhat virtual world. A lot of us don't really understand what's it like as a Gen Z or newer to be growing up. So tell me about that.
Well, I'd like to start off with a comparison, right? So I think what most people are used to is the first things when you were first born, right? You have interactions with a lot of people near you, right? So you have interactions with your family, you have interactions with your, some people that come over to your house, right? The baby is exposed to so many different things and learns so many words, right? Now, for someone like me, when I grew up, and especially Gen Alpha now growing up, what they first see is they learn all of the words that they know in their vocabulary from just an iPad, right? So they learn everything they know from a device. They learn everything that all of the communication skills that they have come from the virtual world, right? From online contexts. So instead of learning your parent teaching you to a child, right? A parent teaching their son or daughter some kind of new context and language, they're learning that from the virtual world because language is forming on the virtual world. So
is it really that extreme though? I mean, like you're in a family and you're communicating with people and so forth. It sounds a little bit...
It's more extreme than that because unfortunately the reality is a lot of people, although they're used to obviously communicating with their parents, they hear some form of language from their parents, they are consuming most of their content now from YouTube videos, right? Parents often now give their children just YouTube videos to watch. So like, for example, Cocomelon, right? I'm sure you've heard of that, right? These are like these online like songs. And I mean, in the past they had TV shows, right? They had like, I mean, this is even recent, but we had SpongeBob, right? Now, nobody really watches SpongeBob even. They watch just basically online influencers speaking directly to the child. And so this is when they're a baby. As they grow up though, I mean, they're going to school, right? They're spending time with their teachers, but their content is coming from a smartboard, right? And then they're having a phone at a really early age, and even the schools that like avoid phones, they still give like iPads and Chromebooks, right? So now the kids are communicating on iPads and Chromebooks. And so now they're having all of their communication on the virtual world. And so in contrast to somebody that never had that, all of their communication skills and now their relationship skills are transforming and being created online. So versus, when a person might be growing up and they might see, they might make their friends in the community, sit on the sidewalk and play with the mud, right? This is like the typical non-Gen Z experience. But nowadays we don't really sit on the mud outside because we stay mostly indoors. And so the generic Gen Z experience is you wake up probably in a dark room, you wake up in a very, very closed environment, you reach for your phone and you just start scrolling or texting your friends and communicating. You don't leave your room, right? You don't go outside and take walks. It's bad.
And part of this story is also that these things are addictive. They've been designed to be addictive. So that now your story is beginning to sound. So listening to you say all this, it feels almost unbelievable. But I kind of am believing you as we add the kind of addiction aspect here.
Yeah, no. So these are addicting things. Obviously, we know that companies like Facebook and Meta are obviously creating algorithms that are basically getting the young people to continue scrolling, right? They're made to appeal to the person's For You, right? Like their For You page. And so obviously, it makes sense that these people would be online. But the other thing is, like, beside the algorithms and the addiction aspect, the fact that these things are so readily available to young people are why they're able to participate, right? At this point, we've kind of reached past the stage where it's like, yes, it's addicting to young people, and now it's just so widely available to young people. This is the new medium of how people communicate. So we're kind of past the addiction, because that's in the past. People are already addicted. Like, that's already the case. And we've reached so much addiction to the point where now all of the conversation is happening online. And this is for good and for bad, right? We obviously have people using X for good reasons, but young people are using Discord, which I'm not sure if you're even aware of. Discord is like the most used platform for young people to communicate on, especially in like the gaming world, where people literally just have only friends they've never met in real life, friends they've only met online, and their entire community is online in these like servers on Discord. And it's the same.
I mean, that's just like audio communication while everyone watches the same game being played or something. That's basically what it is, or?
I mean, it's just people spending all day texting random people.
But that Discord server is like just a way that a whole bunch of people can talk.
Yes.
Online.
It's like a WhatsApp group chat.
Right.
But just imagine a WhatsApp group chat that people spend all day on 24/7, and instead of those people being people they know in real life, these are people they've never met before. In fact, they don't even know their names. They don't know where they live, and they basically just make a caricature of their best selves and then put them on that platform.
So you lived in this world, but you somehow pulled yourself out and you felt the need to do so. Just tell me what happened.
Yeah, so I grew up very natively online, scarily so as well. I mean, I grew up on the Discord world. I grew up on the gaming world as well. I played games all my life. I grew up when I was young. This is something I talk about often. I remember just like in my youngest years, maybe when I was 8 years old, 7 years old, I would wake up, open my computer, and I would play like in online platforms. This is like the oldest stuff. This is before like we even had like the current games. Like there was a game, it was called Vantage. And it was like this online virtual world where people would like talk to each other. They would have like friends and families. It was really weird stuff. But like that was a very famous game at the time. And I would just wake up, play that all day. And even the friends I had in real life, we would end up not even spending time together. We would spend all of our time online. So they'd be in their house, I'd be in my house. We would call each other and we would just play. And it got worse over the years because I started to have entire relationships my parents never even knew about. And I mean, my parents were very good parents, but they had no idea that I had like the access to so much online that they never were aware of. So even if they tried their best to like, make sure that my real world was maintained, the virtual world was not maintained. They had no idea who I was talking to. There was always like the age-old adage, like don't talk to strangers, right? So don't give the address to random people, don't tell people where you live, et cetera, et cetera. But even then, like if you don't give people your address and you're staying safe online, you're still living completely online. And I lived in that world where I was completely online all the time. However, I mean, the thing is, once you reach a stage where you realize how sick you feel, and this was, again, we can talk about this whenever you want, but when I started to feel really, really sick and unhealthy, I started to tear apart all of these layers. And that eventually made me realize that I don't want to be online anymore.
What kind of sick are we talking about?
A lot of variations. I think this is something that I'm happy I can describe, but most young people I think are living in this and they're not able to articulate it and describe it. It's the feeling of you wake up and you're tired, right? You wake up and you've had 8 hours of sleep and yet you still feel sluggish the entire day. Now the solution most people think is, they take energy drinks, right? Like I know all of my friends and everybody that I work with and anybody I talk to, like they're like, energy drinks are the way to go, even though they're always tired after taking the energy drinks. And so, you had a full night of sleep. Why are you still tired? And then after that, obviously gaining weight, feeling sluggish all of the time, not really wanting to play sports anymore, not wanting to go outside. And the worst symptom is like you don't even want to participate in anything healthy because you're just so used to being sluggish and tired. And that's the feelings I had. And this is before I actually experienced mental health issues, which was the tipping point for me.
And I mean, I'm really kind of getting a sense of what you're talking about here, because this is just this reality, being able to exist in the kind of reality you're just describing, didn't exist until very recently.
So this is something we talk about a lot, right? I kind of want to talk about this. So think of what it really means to be a human, right? Like this is a very, very scary thing, but think about what it really means to be a human. We had rituals for most of humanity. Anytime you've heard of like ancestral living, you see people talking about like the keto diet, you hear someone talking about the carnivore diet. Like I know you guys had Sean Baker. Think about what it meant really to experience, to be an ancestral living, right? To live like that. It was these rituals. The rituals were basically you'd wake up because the sun came out. So you would wake up. Everybody would wake up every single day because the sun came out. Everybody would go to bed because the sun went down, right? People would gather at night because, there's like community gatherings, right? They had communal gatherings at a set time every single day. All of these things that are rituals, these are things that we just do because that's just how we are as humans. We don't have those rituals anymore. I wake up and it's a dark room, so I'm not really waking up from the sun anymore. I wake up from an alarm. I go to bed at night, and it's not because of an alarm, it's just because, I close my shades, I can't even see the sun. That's not why I'm going to sleep. So all of these things, all of these rituals don't exist. So I'm creating artificial rituals now. And so what does it look like to be a human and you don't even have those rituals anymore? You're basically not living like a human anymore. You're living completely out of what humans have lived for hundreds of thousands of years. There's never been a time in history for hundreds of thousands of years, ever. We've had, a big conversation people have is like, every century people are like, oh, this is the scariest time to live, right? No, this is literally the scariest time to live because this is the first time we're not being human and having rituals. Like these rituals are just the core basis of what humans are.
Adnan, one quick sec, we're going to take a break, and folks, we're going to be right back. And we're back with Adnan Al-Khalili, founder of Touch Grass Together. So how does touching grass fit into all this?
So, the funny thing about touch grass is that when I talk to people in politics or like DC, right? And I tell them touch grass, they think that we're some niche organization. And they're like, oh, you guys are just like, you have funny name. It's related to grass. It's like some niche idea, right? And the crazy thing is it's not niche at all. It is actually probably one of the most famous Gen Z phrases, which is touch grass, because everybody living in the virtual world, when it comes to health, they never talk about health ever. It's not something that's communicated. They don't talk about health because ultimately if you bring up something related to real life on the virtual world, you're going to get crushed because they don't want to talk about the real world. But the one phrase that is used out of any phrase when it comes to health, it's only one phrase, and it's touch grass, because that's basically people telling each other online, you've literally been online all day, and it's usually an insult, but it's like, you've been online all day, go touch the earth, right? Go touch grass. And so it's become like the only phrase related to health online. And so ultimately we were realizing that, and we said, there's only one phrase related to health. Why don't we use it? Why don't we use that to be the way we get people offline? Because if everybody's already aware, maybe they're not aware to the extent that we talked about right now, right? But the fact that young people are telling each other every single day, go touch grass, doesn't that inherently mean that somewhere within their mind, they know that they're literally not touching the earth anymore? And so ultimately, we're trying to use that now as a way to culturally create a solution to this problem.
So, but except that you're using like leaf piles.
Oh, that's an example, yeah. So what basically we've come up with is a framework called the touch grass moment. And ultimately, we're trying, like we talked about rituals, right? We're trying to recreate human ritual. So instead of getting people to just, telling everybody on the podcast, go wake up at the sunlight and go to sleep at the sunlight, young people don't care. They're not going to talk about health. They're not going to talk about physiology either. There's some people that will. I'll talk about it. But I'm really talking about, statistical anomalies, right? So for the most part, people will not talk about health in order to get them to go do healthy things. But they will talk about the really silly Gen Z trends. And so if you tell them, come to this specific place, let's do something really silly and stupid, because nobody likes serious things. Let's do something really silly and stupid. Ultimately, you're resulting in them doing a touch grass moment, which is them coming out into the real world, and they're doing one of four things. They're getting in the light, right? So they're regulating their circadian rhythm. They're moving, right? So, which is great and important for their health, and a normal thing of being a human, right? Because nowadays everybody's just staying sedentary all day, which has never existed before. No humans have just stayed inside all day, which is even scary if you think about it. But we're getting them moving, right? We're getting them connecting. That's another aspect. So there's three, right? They're connecting with each other, speaking to other human beings. And the fourth thing is we're nourishing them. So we're also including nutrition, like intermittent fasting, things like that. And so all four of those things are used to create what we call a touch grass moment. And one of those things, like recently, like you mentioned, we had an event where a bunch of kids came and just jumped in a pile of leaves, right? And ultimately, we also, literally like 2 days ago, our Penn State University chapter just had a snowball fight. And then they dug a big hole and they touched grass in the snow.
I can't help but think you decided, that you're actually going to go, you're studying metabolic health,
yeah,
right now. So you're kind of applying, you're studying what you're applying as part of this whole touch grass thing.
It came from
right?
that. It came from that.
Right.
When I was experiencing all of the health issues that I experienced, I had no motivation whatsoever to really do anything. There was no motivation for a career. I mean, my parents wanted me to do a bunch of things, and like every parent does, but I had no motivation to do anything. I remember I used to feel like I felt like when I was in my senior year of high school or my junior year of high school, I felt like my life was over. Like I genuinely felt like I was so tired of life that I felt like I was in my 70s or 80s and I had no motivation to continue. I felt like I was done. I was like, I lived a long life. What else is there to do, right? And when I solved my health issues, I had so much motivation and goals that I had so much interest in metabolic health. Metabolic health is right now, I think, getting there. I think people are starting to talk about it, especially with the current administration, right? They're talking about metabolic health, but I don't think we realize how significant it is, right? Like how can you not consider the fact that if your cells are dead, you're going to be dead, right? Like literally the energy of your cell, how is that not the most important thing? Like I can't imagine studying anything else. I think that's, right now, I think every doctor should be studying metabolic health. I think that should be the main thing you study in medical school, which is how do you keep people's cells alive? And I think if young people get their metabolic health good as well, I mean, they're going to be perfect. And that's why Touch Grass are the four components I told you about: light, movement, and nourishment and connection. Those are literally just the drivers of metabolic health. And we just basically took the word metabolic health off of it and we put Touch Grass moment on top of it, right? So basically make them do physiologically healthy things for the metabolic health, but don't use the word metabolic health whatsoever. Don't use the word physiology. And because ultimately they're going to fix their metabolic health. And that's really what we want.
We're just going to keep this a secret for only the people that are watching this show, right? That's what you're saying?
If young people want to participate in the science aspect, they can. But I think it's just so fun already as it is. Like we know how young people are, and especially the people in Touch Grass together, they love just the silly aspect of it. And as they get into the silly aspect of it and they start to integrate and they start to feel how it feels to really be outside and do these things, then they actually gain the interest of like, okay, now I actually want to learn, why am I feeling these things? Like what is the actual science behind it? And we've had that experience.
You're describing a transformation of, essentially how people think at a mass scale without us fully realizing what has happened. I mean, basically.
Yeah, I think it's happening really, really quickly, to the point where a lot of research institutions are just used to doing research the way they've always done, right? Where it's like, you survey 1,000 people and then you see like what they're feeling. And I think that's why we haven't caught up to how scary this is. And that's why, like with Touch Grass together, like we haven't employed polls, but we're really just talking to young people every single day. We hear the latest things every single day. And I think that's what everybody needs to do, but it's hard to do. I mean, the Trump admin recently had like the Council on Fitness and Nutrition. I don't know with Catherine Granito, and they also had the Maha report come out. And one of the most important things that they talked about in it there was screen time and establishing councils in each state to reach young people. And it's been months now, and they haven't done that. And I think it's because they don't know how to do that. I don't think they realize how to reach young people, how to actually get to young people. And we've done that. I mean, we did it in like a matter of 1 or 2 months of just reaching so many young people and learning every single day now what is the actual experience on the ground. And this is something that, I mean, we can scale really, really big to so many institutions, to literally communities, to find out what are young people thinking. And that's because, the internet moves so quickly and things change every single day. And just how bad this is getting is just changing every single day. Something that really scares me is I see all the research being done on nutrition and also the education on nutrition. But I ultimately think that no matter how much we do when it comes to research, when it comes to investigating what's happening, I think that technology is going to get stronger anyways, because we don't have nutrition billionaires, we have technology billionaires, right? And trillionaires, actually. So we have trillions in technology, but we only have, people investing in nutrition, but they're not creating solutions and tools to really get healthy people living. There's no billionaires in the health world, right? There's billionaires in the tech world.
That's so much of your life and your identity and your thoughts and your preoccupations are in that virtual world, really, and not in the normal world. I think that's the part that's hard to conceive.
And I think there's benefits as well, though. And the reason I say there's benefits is because when it comes to like global communication, right? I mean, a kid in America now can talk to a kid in Germany and they can have something to connect on, right? They have nothing. Like the politics doesn't really divide them as much anymore. And maybe long term that's better because people can communicate devoid of politics and maybe find better solutions to problems we wouldn't have been able to do in the past. But at the same time, when we're not even alive to have that experience, I mean, I don't think that matters.
So you're giving me kind of two messages here. One is that this is here to stay we're stuck with it.
Yeah.
And frankly, the highly manipulative environment that we touched on a bit that it engenders, right? With all these people vying for our attention, which probably was part of the OCD you experienced, and so forth. So that's just all a reality. On the other hand, you really think that there's a way to mitigate this in a meaningful way. And I'm not convinced you can do it outside of, just unplugging from the system entirely. So like realistically, right, what are the realistic solutions here?
Yeah, I mean, so this is, on a very small scale, it's what we talked about, right? Like jumping into leaves, that's a small community-based thing. When it comes to larger communities, right, instead of like, for example, like telling people not to take phones out of schools, right now we're investing most of our time into, new legislation on this, trying to just solve it by basically axing it out. I think what we need to do is we need to start investing in legislation and also just partnerships with technology where we're able to seed into technology healthy rituals and healthy habits. So this is, for example, what we're doing with Touch Grass, where it's like we can work with a technology company, and with that technology company that's otherwise, they don't want their user base to end up dying, right? They don't want their user base to be so sick, because otherwise who's going to use their devices when it comes to 30, 40 years from now, right? So what we ultimately need is we need that these people are using the technology, but we're able to create rituals online that get them ultimately outside. So like, I'll give an example of this. Imagine on Instagram, right? Something that people really enjoy are like badges, right? If they get like a badge on Instagram that says like, it's very meaningless, but it's just a badge, right? If they get a badge because they went outside and they did a real world thing, right, a touch grass moment, ultimately they're going to go outside. And at the end of the day, they're going to be healthy. So instead of going into the schools, taking out the phones, throwing them outside, what we actually need to do is invest in initiatives and projects that are getting people to use the technology, but use it in a way that the technology itself is also going outside. So we need to push a partnership. And ultimately that kind of partnership is required, because if the technology companies don't allow a partnership like that to happen, then we really have no solution. But I think the technology companies are kind of driven and incentivized to do that.
A final thought as we finish up?
I think that this is very imminent. I think if we don't solve this, we really won't have much more time. And this is why I think in 20, 30 years, if we reach the reality that we talked about where, AI is everywhere and people are walking in the street and they're communicating with technology 24/7, if we've reached that point and we've not created infrastructure today, especially when it comes to higher government, we've not created infrastructure and we just focused on policies and legislation. I think if we reach that point, then we really have no other way of getting out of it. But if we start today, we can avoid the point maybe in 20, 30 years. We can already have been in that technology. We can already have the infrastructure so that when that comes, we're prepared and we're part of it already, right? We're part of the technology that's in the streets that gets people to still do healthy habits.
Well, Adnan Al-Khalili, such a pleasure to have had you on.
It was a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you all for joining Adnan Al-Khalili and me on this episode of American Thought Leaders. I'm your host, Jan Jekielek.